Welcome back, guys, to another episode of The Curious Cat. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And if you find this video useful or informative to any extent and you feel that you might have some friends or family that could use some of this information, please pass along the video, share it with some friends and family. The more people we can get to like the video, it helps me get the information out there a little more and helps more of us kind of prepare for what could be coming. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Today I'm going to speak a little bit about the potential of an economic depression, an economic collapse. I think that it's very possible at the moment for a lot of different reasons that I've discussed in previous videos. So I won't get into that too much in this video, but I do want to speak a little bit about kind of ways we can prepare and what's important if that is the situation that lies ahead. So with the high probability of an economic collapse with COVID outbreak and many businesses in economic trouble and a lot of debt out and not many ways to pay it back when all these businesses are being ordered to shut down. And so many people already are having mortgage deferrals, they're relying on handouts for the government. And what happens if those handouts stop? What happens if the government stops giving people money, if the banks stop deferring the debt and they start calling for the money back? Well, we're going to be in a major economic downturn, which could very potentially lead to the greatest depression because of the high debt levels. So if that happens, you want to be prepared. And some of the key things to be prepared are to have some land. Number one thing is have some land or access to land. Maybe you can get on land with family or some friends. You can team up, you can work some kind of deal where maybe you're caretaking the land or something like that. But number one thing is to get some kind of arable land where you can farm food. You don't want to be stuck in the city if things really start getting rough, because there's nowhere to farm food or hunt or gather in the cities. So to get outside of the cities and get somewhere like this where you're in the forest, you have access to arable land, you can grow a garden, hunt, fish, all that. That is going to protect you against food shortages or extreme rise in cost of food, that kind of stuff. So in an economic depression, food becomes really hard to get, and a lot of the businesses, the suppliers, start shutting down. And also we have economic trade wars that are starting and a lot of currency wars that are going on. And so when trade starts tightening up, then we don't have the imports we used to, and it gets harder to get food, and the food that you can get becomes more and more expensive. And we saw the first taste of this in April when COVID first broke out, maybe in May as well. We started seeing the first taste of food shortages. A lot of us had never seen that in our time, especially millennials. That was pretty new to us. So basically that's a taste of what could come. It could get a lot worse. Hopefully that was as bad as it'll get, and everything gets back to normal. But in my opinion, it doesn't hurt to prepare. And if everything gets back to normal, so what? You got a bit of extra food in your cupboard and you can feed your friends and family, and you're going to eat the food anyways. I mean, so it doesn't hurt to get a little bit of food in your fridge. It doesn't hurt to have some land as well. Property always seems to go up. I mean, it does kind of do this, but in the long run, it's always just going up. And so yeah, to get yourself a little bit of arable land where if things do get bad, you can go and grow a garden. That's a great thing. Get yourself out of debt. That's another huge one. A lot of people are highly exposed to these debt markets. They're over leveraged. They have way too many toys. They own houses that are just astronomical in cost to maintain, and the amount of debt they pulled out to buy these homes, basically living outside of their means. And sure, it looked good when they did the math, when things were booming and we had a booming economy with record low interest rates, and basically everyone thought they were going to be able to make that kind of money forever, especially in a lot of these oil rich provinces here in Canada and states down in the US. A lot of these people that were making huge money, they basically did the math then, and they bought homes and toys according to how much they were making, assuming they would be able to make that forever. And now the economic situation has changed, And a lot of people aren't able to make the money they were only a year ago or so. So another key thing is getting rid of unneeded expenses, right? Like really look at your bank statement, look at your expenses, look at all these subscriptions you're paying, look at the little extras, the cable TV, your cell phone plan. Really break it down. Do you need that extensive of a cell phone plan? Do you need the Spotify subscription, all that kind of stuff? So just really take a close look at your finances, see what you can get rid of. Maybe you have, 3, 4, 5 vehicles. Do you really need that? Maybe you could sell a few of those. So just downsizing, selling off some of your stuff that you don't need, especially if they're liabilities, if you're paying interest on it. Really look at reducing your liabilities, and then that will help basically create a more resilience in your own life and shelter you if we do enter a more severe downturn. I mean, it's already officially a depression, and the US just came out with their latest numbers. Their GDP is down 33%. That's the worst drop we've seen since the Great Depression, even worse than the Great Depression. And it's not looking great. So you don't want to be holding a bunch of debt and liabilities if that's a situation. What you want to be doing is getting rid of those and gathering as much capital as you can, and diversifying a bit, because usually in economic crisis, we have a currency crisis as well. So we're seeing a major currency crisis at the moment with these governments printing record levels of currency, and they're essentially debasing the currencies and destroying their purchasing power. That's why the price of everything is skyrocketing. That's why the price of real estate is sky high. The price of stocks is going through the roof. The price of food, price of everything is going through the roof. And a lot of that is because the currency is losing its purchasing power. So in order to shelter yourself against that, I believe personally, I like to be diversified. I like to own a few different currencies in a sense. So I like to have some gold, I like to have some silver, and I like to have that in physical bullion, physical coinage, so that I can use that to barter if it really comes down to that. And another way you might diversify is you could consider learning about cryptocurrency. That's another a lot of people believe anyways that it's going to act as a hedge against this inflation, and I also believe that. I see a little more risk in crypto as it is so new. However, I do hold Bitcoin and I do believe in it, and I think it'll be around for the next while. So I hold a little bit of crypto. Like I said, I have precious metals. I have physical cash that I hold outside of the banking system in case there's a banking crisis. You don't want to be stuck in lineup. And we saw in this last economic crisis with COVID, we saw that they basically started limiting physical withdrawals from the bank. So they were limiting us here in Canada to about $2,000 a day. So if you have $100,000 or $1 million in the bank, well, if you're one of the very lucky ones that was able to save that much money, well, you don't have access to it. So it's a good idea to prepare now, get some of that money outside of the bank. But if it really gets that bad, people probably won't be accepting little pieces of plastic for their food or for their gardening tools or whatnot. They're going to want a lot more than plastic, because people don't really, the confidence in these dollars won't maintain if it gets that bad, and they just keep printing the money into the ground. So you want to stay diversified, in my opinion, to have, like I said, some alternative currencies, and have stuff that's useful to you. Have some gardening tools, have some tools for fixing stuff, mechanics tools, tools for carpentry. You want to have stuff to be able to hunt, to fish, and to build shelter, to get water. You want to have a good water filtration system that doesn't require power. You want to have some alternative ways to produce power. So a generator, some backup gas. You want to have some solar if you can. All that kind of stuff's going to help shelter you against potential crisis. So another thing I would say is have some pedal bikes, because if it gets really bad and you can't get a hold of gasoline, you still need to be able to move around. So If you have a pedal bike, you can pedal up to the lake, do some fishing, some hunting, that kind of stuff. So just really give it some thought and prepare, and also get to know the land around you. Know where the lakes are, know where the hunting is, know the different routes, so that if there is some kind of disaster, alternative ways to get around it. Get to know your neighbors. So many people are busy, tied up on social media, but they don't even know their own neighbors. So that's another way that I think is useful to kind of prepare to get to know your neighbors, know what kind of people they are. Also get some stuff for self-defense. Get some guns, some ammo, some knives, pepper spray maybe. It's obviously not something you want to use, but at the same time, you don't want to be caught with no way to defend yourself if it really came down to it. And at the same time, you can use guns and ammo and knives and stuff for fishing and hunting, which helps you get food. So those are some ways that you can prepare, and grow your community. Get to know your neighbors and see what they're thinking. And if it really gets that bad, you guys can kind of work together. So I just watched a video on prepping, and he made some good points that I hadn't thought of about getting some extra clothing together, because in the last Great Depression, a lot of the clothing stores shut down, and clothing got really hard to get. So yeah, have some extra durable clothes, some extra pairs of jeans and denim shirts and cotton and stuff like that, durable materials, and also cool materials that are easy to farm in and stuff like that. So those are also some ways that you can prepare. And just don't be too maxed out on debt, and don't be caught with your pants down per se, where you're all in on debt and all in on, say, a mortgage, but you're living paycheck to paycheck and you have no money in the bank. You're not diversified at all. All your money's in on some piece of real estate that's in a city. You don't have any way to grow food there. I think the cities are going to see a mass exodus, because a lot of people are waking up to the vulnerability of living in a city. You can see how a pandemic like we're seeing breaks out and spreads way quicker in the cities. So to me, I'd rather live out more rural and live in nature. That way I have easier access to hunting and fishing. And if things get bad, we know a lot of people in the city don't have resources. So things could get pretty extreme, where they're forced to essentially try and rob and steal to get food. I mean, you can't really blame people if it gets that bad. What else are you going to do? So by living outside of the city, you're somewhat sheltered from that. It doesn't mean you're totally immune, but it does give you some shelter from that. And to have a bit of a portable camp. So I just spent the last 9 months renovating an RV and getting it all set up so that I can live off grid for multiple weeks at a time if it comes down to it. So if things get bad or somebody charges the land, we're able to flee and we're able to move along and survive for a few weeks at a time. So that just offers a little more resilience and options that you want to have at your disposal if it really comes down to it. So I really hope it doesn't get this bad, but I do see potential, and I'm not even saying it's a high potential, but the potential is greater than it's been in a long time. And that's the reason I see that, is because I have basically been studying economics and the macroeconomic trends and basically what's going on, and seeing all this debt and how there's so much debt and people are already living paycheck to paycheck, and then something like this happens. It's basically the black swan that can really pop the bubble and leave a lot of people in a very desperate economic situation. And at the same time, we're seeing the governments debase the currency. And what that does is it essentially transfers the wealth from the lower middle class, and it transfers it into the hands of the rich. And it does that by essentially, as they debase the currency by printing more of it, assets, so the stock market and real estate inflates with that. So the prices go up. And very few of the middle class are holding these assets. Most of them only have some savings in the bank, or they're banking on their pension fund, or stuff like that. And so the really wealthy are holding all of the stocks and the real estate, so their assets appreciate with the inflation. So essentially they don't lose, but the middle class will get wiped out because most of them, like I say, aren't holding stuff like precious metals, like stocks, or like you know, asset real estate that's considered an asset. So cash producing, cash flow positive real estate. Most of the middle class are owning homes that essentially aren't producing cash. It's just somewhere for them to live. It's not an investment property per se. So it actually is more of a liability. So for me, I was really wanting real estate the last 10 years, but I just couldn't bring myself to buy, seeing what I saw coming in the charts. And don't get me wrong, I could be dead wrong, and I hope I am wrong for everyone's sake. I hope I'm wrong on this call, but seeing what I saw, I'm not essentially going to take the capital I have and put it all into real estate. I think that's way too risky. I would rather have some capital on the sidelines that can essentially help me weather the storm if it really gets that bad. And I'll be looking to just kind of assess the situation as it unfolds and see how bad it really is going to get. And then I'll take some of those precious metals or the cash or whatever, and trade it for stuff like greenhouses or farming equipment, stuff like that. So it's looking like I might actually end up working a deal with my folks. They have a bit of land here and I could set up. So I might set something up temporarily, and then that just buys me some time. I can stay there for a year and just kind of see how bad things get. And if things go back to normal and it all turns out all right, then so be it. Then I'll maybe look at buying into real estate then. But what I'm trying to say is I just don't think it's the right time to basically get too overweighted in real estate. And I think a lot of people, especially here in Canada, a lot of people are all in on real estate. They have all their eggs in on one basket, and a lot of their capital, their working capital, is going to paying these mortgages. So that kind of leaves all their eggs in one basket and leaves them very vulnerable to a deflationary situation in the real estate market. And the reason I think we might see deflation in real estate is because people are going to be liquidating. If things get that bad, people aren't going to be able to afford the debt that they thought they were when they entered these agreements in the past 10 years when things were booming. So a lot of people will have to reassess their economic situation if the economy essentially is shut down for longer, and the economic situation gets worse, and the currency debasement gets worse, and the cost of living goes higher. People will be looking to basically liquidate, especially second, third homes, or homes that are more of a liability than they may be realized. So I think that we'll see some downward pressure on the real estate markets moving ahead. And yeah, that's basically it. It's a bit of a rant. So let me know in the comments below kind of what you guys are thinking. Do you think it's possible that we could see an extended economic downturn, or maybe something even more severe like a Great Depression economic crisis? Or do you think we're just going to get back to normal here and everyone's going to be fine and we're going to be able to sustain these record debt levels? Let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. Also, let me know if you guys have some thoughts on good things to obtain now while we can to prepare. I don't know if I mentioned, but yeah, stockpiling food, getting a freezer or two and filling it with food, and getting non-perishable food items, that kind of stuff, just so you're sheltered against food shortages if we do see that again moving forward this winter, especially in Canada. It can get pretty gnarly in the winter and get pretty challenging to obtain food if there's disruptions in the supply chain. So let me know in the comments what you guys think, some more ideas you have about ways to prepare and basically get ready for the potential of a larger or more drawn out economic crisis. With that being said, thank you guys so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. Again, please like the video, share it with friends and family, and I'll see you guys in the next video.